Before we continue with any webinars at Royal Roads, it is so important that we do an acknowledgement of traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Chaseten, Esquimalt, and Lekwungen Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. Welcome. So today's session, complete your MA in Professional Communication. With me, I have Dr. Chaseten Remillard, who is the Associate Professor and Program Head of MAPC, so the MA in Professional Communication. And my name is Emara Angus, and I'm an Education Specialist. We also have our enrollment team on the call, Deanna, so she's there to answer any questions in the chat, or you can connect with her at a later time to have any questions posed to her about the program. So today's agenda, introductions, which is what we're doing right now. Then we're going to talk about bridging your GC, because we know everybody in the room here today is a graduate from the Professional Communication Management Program. And we're going to talk about bridging your GC to an MA. We're going to go through the program information, what's happening right now in the MAPC program, some highlights. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the application process. So exactly what you need to submit to continue and move your grad cert into a master's. And now I'm so pleased to welcome up Dr. Chaseten Remillard, who's going to talk about the program structure.
Thanks, Emara, and welcome everyone. I just wanted to bring your attention to a few things that are happening in the program. This is in terms of curriculum design. We're in the process of creating a communication in Indigenous context course. And we also are hoping to have a new data analytics course on the horizon. So those are two things in terms of curriculum that will definitely be great additions to the program. I also just wanted to draw your attention to a couple of courses that have been developed in the last year. These are called special topics courses. One of them is instructed by Dr. Philip Panini. He's quite a renowned filmmaker and author. He was for many years the communication research chair in public ethnography. And he is offering a course on what he's calling mobilities, which is really a course that looks at how communication connects to human movement in a very sort of broad understanding. Dr. Jeff Bird is also offering a special topics course which connects public memorial or collective memory, communication, and culture together. So these are two really interesting courses, and it also kind of highlights the course 650, which is called special topics, that will have new offerings and interesting offerings every year. I should also just mention that our graduates go on to work in all kinds of different areas, including government, private, nonprofit, digital spheres. And part of what we're doing as a school is that we're really looking to foster a reputation as an organization or as a communication program that puts ethics first. And so part of that is the conference that we're running every year on communication ethics. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the previous two conferences, we will be holding a third in February of 2023. So those are all things that are happening in the program. I wonder, can I advance the slides? Oh, you're gonna.
I can give you permission as well to advance them. So I'll just press a button and Chase, you'll be able to advance the slides moving forward.
Okay, great. So the great thing about the grad cert is that you get full credit for what you've done. And so you've ended with finishing the grad cert, you have 9 credits that can apply directly to the MAPC. Now you could, if you wish, probably get those 9 credits to another program at Royal Roads as well. But the design of the grad cert is really to facilitate you to move into the MA and to have a sort of seamless procedure. So for example, if you were to start this fall with a grad cert in hand, you would be finished your MA in September of 2024. So it's been a really good investment of your time and energy to complete the grad cert, because it isn't like a continuing eds, sort of a traditional continuing education course, which gives you professional development but no credentials. This actually gives you credentials that can be used and credits that you can use directly and without any kind of reduction into the program. So it's a very strong, it's really a strong way to start your graduate degree. So, well, as you might recall, you finished 9 credits. You finished strategic communication, strategic digital communication, and conflict analysis and management. And our degree is 36 credits total. So you've done a quarter of the work towards finishing the degree. And because this is really aimed at folks who have the grad cert in hand, I'm going to take a little bit of time to get probably a little more granular than maybe we would in a more like traditional recruitment seminar, and talk about the sort of ways in which you would actually complete the program and what it would look like for you. So you came in to the grad cert at the point in which what we do is we call it intensive. So we run 2 intensive. Now, you start the program with those 9 credits, but actually in terms of the way in which our program is structured, those courses that you took are actually part of intensive 2. So even though you come in with those credits, you've kind of banked the near end credits of the program. And so this is actually a great thing, and by design, because that means that when you come into the cohort, you will start with everyone in your cohort for the majority of your education in the MA. So you'll get the benefit of the cohort. You won't come in sort of halfway through. You'll be recalibrated really and come in with the cohort at the beginning. So you'll have all the opportunity to get to know those relationships and build those networks, which is really a really great part and a unique part of Royal Roads education. So when you come in, you'll come into that intensive 1, as we call it. And in that intensive 1, you'll do 3 courses. Then you'll go into distance 1, where you'll do a couple of courses, distance 2, a couple more courses, and then you'll come back to campus or have an intensive, because we've not been able to be on campus from the pandemic, and so we're transitioning on campus and so on. But you'll come in for that intensive, and then you'll have that's where the program kind of diverges for everyone, not just for people who have the grad cert. So the MA has 3 different completion pathways, and basically we have a core sort of 24 or 30 credit, depending on which pathway, credit that is common for all of our students. And those 24 program-based credits are kind of the core credits, of which one of those you've already taken, which is the strategic communications. So if you're in the thesis pathway, what you're doing is you're doing the core 24 credits, and then you're doing 12 credits as a thesis. So your thesis work is actually 12 credits. If you're doing a second pathway, as an option, is called the research paper, where you do the 24 credits plus a 3 credit course, which is typically 650, the special topics course. And then you do 6 credits as a research paper. So the difference between a thesis and the research paper is that a thesis comes with all of the sort of academic it goes to an external examiner, you have a defense, you have more time to do research with people, so you can have a really open research agenda, so you can essentially research almost anything that you wish. Whereas the research paper tends to be, it doesn't have a defense, it doesn't have an external examiner. Your potential to work and do research is limited, so that you'll graduate on time and you're not going into the thesis, right? So we kind of circumscribe a little bit with the expectations of the research paper, so that it still remains doable in a time frame. And you can still pursue whatever research that you wish. And what I found is sort of the difference between a thesis student and a research paper student is that a thesis student is doing a lot of independent research. It might be more academic based, whereas a research paper student tends to be more interested in questions around organizations, organizational culture. They want to maybe improve something within their current role, or they're looking to improve their current organizational outreach or what have you. So it's more, a lot of times the research paper is more in situ within the organization where people are working or where they've spent a lot of time. The third option is there, which is the course-based. And the course-based is that instead of those 6 credits that you would do as a research paper, you do 6 non-program electives. In other words, you go out into Royal Roads and you choose from a whole bunch of different courses that are offered in different programs, 2 courses that you would like to complete. So a lot of students will take that option. They'll take maybe a course offered through the MBA, or they might take a course that's offered through leadership, or they might take a course in interdisciplinary studies. So they take a course that sort of allows them to dig into a specialization that they're interested in. And the benefit of the course-based approach is that you're guaranteed to finish at that time, right? So you're not dependent on any of those kind of non-tangibles that can happen in a thesis or in a research product paper, where the people who you were going to interview delayed it by a week, or all those things, right? So a course-based is really, if you are the type of person who really wants to know that September 2024 you're going to have the parchment in hand, and you're also looking to get a little bit of diversity, then that's a really good option for you. So there's those 3 exist regardless of whether or not you've taken the grad cert. Now, this is really sort of the pathway for the way that the course is set up. And like I said, you would jump in and start here in intensive 1 with an introduction to communication theory, communication and culture in organizations, where you do a course, a case challenge, and that's a really great opportunity for you to work in teams and solve a problem of an organization. And then you do the research process and methods. And I spend a little bit of time on intensive 1 because really the MAPC is designed to offer kind of 3 different types of courses. One is very theoretical, one is very practical, and one is a bridge course. And so if you look at our offerings of courses, you can kind of put them into those categories, and you get all 3 of those right at the start. So obviously in the theory course, you're getting theory. So you're learning about what communication as a study is about, and you're digging into those theories. On the other side of the spectrum, the practical course, that's communication and culture and organizations, because your deliverables there is literally solving an organizational problem. It's a practical application to a specific context, right? We bring in clients. We worked with folks from let's say the BC Coroners. We worked with Rugby Canada, right? So they come in and they have a challenge, and you're solving that challenge. And then the middle ground is that bridge course, which is the methods, because both an approach to theory is going to need some kind of methodological inquiry, but also you're going to need to have some kind of way to measure things in a practical solution. You're going to have to know whether or not what you've done has worked in some way. So research methods is that bridge, because it's both about how to pursue academic inquiry into thesis or into communication studies, but it's also a practical course because you need to have empirical, measurable metrics when you're doing professional communication. And so a lot of our courses you'll see when you take them, in retrospect, you'll probably be able to slot them into those 3 categories, and that's sort of how the program is set up. In distance 1, you have a couple of courses that you would complete, and then it goes on to distance 2, and then you can see that in intensive 2 and in distance 3, you start to have a little bit more of a tailored pathway depending on what you're doing, if it's thesis or if it's research paper or if it's course-based. So I've given sort of 3 scenarios. I don't know if we want to go through all of them, but I'll give one sample here of what it might be like. I'll give one sample of the thesis and then maybe of like a course-based, because then the middle ground is the research paper. But so, let's say you come in and you're really gung-ho on doing a thesis and you've got your grad cert in hand. Well, what that means is that there's 3 courses out of this 36, there's 9 credits out of this 36 credit program that you already have. Now, one of them is the strategic down here in intensive 2, right, is the strategic communication. You've already completed that. And you've also completed what we would call like a program-based elective, which is the strategic digital communications, and the second one, which is the conflict analysis and management. So those are taken off. Now, because you're not doing research paper and you're not doing course-based, then we take 650 out of the mix as well. And we would take communication and policy or communication culture and media and technology. You could choose with program oversight which one of those credits the program head thinks needs not to be taken. And you would have a situation where you start with your cohort for the intensive 1, distance 1, you do 1 course, distance 2, you do another course, and then you move directly into your thesis. And so in a way, the thesis is a mechanism by which you would actually be very streamlined with the grad cert through the program, because you would really be taking, whenever you finish would be dependent on when you were done your thesis work. So, but most people don't do a thesis and most people don't do course-based. Most people do a research paper. That's the default, and that's most people go through that way. So if you were to do the research paper, it's a sort of similar process here, right? You now have 9 credits as you did before. You've in intensive 2, right? You've already done strategic communication and you've done a program-based elective. So what we would leave in intensive 2 would be, we would leave one other program-based elective for you to complete, so that you would have an option there of doing something that's offered by the program in intensive 2. And you would go through the program otherwise, right? So you would go through intensive 1, distance 1 with those 2 courses, distance 2 again, because your research paper, you would maybe miss the special topics course, and then you would do a program elective, and then you would do your research paper. The other option is that you really want to do that special topics. You really want to be in Dr. Vanini's class, let's say, on mobilities, to which then you would then take 650, which is in distance 2, and you wouldn't have the second intensive, right? So you would just go right from there into your research paper, and again, an expedited process for you. And I guess then the last is the course-based, right? And again, sort of similar thing, right? You would go through in this case, because you're not doing a research proposal, we would take applied communication research and research proposal off the table for you, so that you don't need to develop a proposal for a project that you're not working on. And then you would go in and you would finish with a couple of non-course based electives. And those non-course based electives, here are all the course-based electives. So there's a bunch that we do offer: media production, communication for sustainability, and so on. So again, depending on what area you're interested in, you could take those if they're offered in that intensive too. But non-program based electives, there's a wide range of these that you can take. And this would be, if you're doing the course-based pathway, you would then go out into Royal Roads and take a couple of courses, 6 credits worth. So usually 3 credits each, right? So you take a couple of courses from, leadership. There's a great new course that's been developed by Dr. Jaggers Hodson, which is on misinformation in society, which is offered through interdisciplinary studies. Right. So there's all kinds of new courses that are always being created and offered by different programs. And so this allows you, if you're doing the course-based option, to shop around and take some that might be up your your interest alley, as it were. Right. So I know that's a lot of detail and maybe more detail than you need, but I guess what the overarching sort of takeaway of this is that there are many different ways that you can tailor your education with that grad cert and expedite your timeline, or spend more time in classroom with your cohort, depending on what path sort of suits your learning style and your education goals better. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and the program team is there to help you. So this isn't just something that we would expect you to figure out on your own. We have a program team, and the program coordinator, Neha Sharma, would be someone who would sit down and say, okay, like, what are you wanting to do? Here's the timelines. Here's what it would look like. If you took that, this is when those courses are available, right? So it's not something that you need to worry about to try to figure out. We would help you. It's just, I want to show you the different options that you have if you come into the program, and how it might play out for you. And I think I talked a little bit about the careers already, so I'll turn it over to Emara, and she can run through the practicalities of applying.
Yeah, I have a quick question for you, Chase, though, before we jump into how to apply. So say somebody is not sure if they want to do course-based or they want to do thesis. I know we can have them connect with Neha, but when do they have to decide? Do they have to decide before they apply, while they apply, after?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have a deadline that we set usually after the first course that you do in distance 1. So you'll come in with everyone. Nobody knows what they want to do. Some people think they want to do thesis. Some people think they want to do course-based. They get to try it out, and then you go off into distance 1. And in distance 1, you have another course. At near the end of that course, or sort of into the middle of the second distance 1 course, while now that you have sort of 4 courses under your belt and you're kind of settled into what it means to do, and you have more information about the thesis, you have more information about what research looks like as a graduate student, that's when we ask you to make the decision. And it's a very simple decision, because, like I said, the default pathway is the research paper. If you want to do thesis, you declare thesis and you have to do a proposal, short proposal. If you want to do course-based, you just send in some pre-selected ideas of what courses you might want to take and a couple of things of paperwork, and that's all it is. It's not a really difficult thing to do. And it usually is after about 4 classes into the course, or 4.5 classes into the course.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know that information. So now jumping into how to apply. Everybody who's done a grad cert in professional communication management, they have already been accepted to Royal Roads the first time, but we do need you to apply again to get into the Masters of Professional Communication program. So I wanted to mention that. That being said, depending on the time frame of when you completed your grad cert, there might be certain documents that you don't need to resubmit. So what I recommend before I dive into the whole how to apply is I recommend, if you're interested in being a part of the intake coming up, to reach out to our enrollment team and talk about your plans to do that, and they can have a look and make sure that you're submitting the correct documents. So now that I've mentioned that, let's jump in here. So right now, the online application is around $128. So you start up an online application again on our website. And things that you will need to submit are official transcripts, detailed resumes. So you will already have a detailed resume from when you applied to the grad cert. But I have a feeling that things have changed. You've just completed a grad cert. Maybe your experience at work has changed, or maybe you're in a new role, or you've picked up some different opportunities along the way. And we want to know about that. We want to hear about that. So an update to your detailed resume is a great idea, and resubmitting that. A personal statement as well. Our motives and our goals, they change. So an updated personal statement. And Diana might be able to clarify that the time frame that reference letters last in our system and when they need to be updated, but we will need 2 letters of reference as well to be submitted for your application. So some key dates: we keep our website completely up to date with our intakes and our application deadlines. So we do have an intake this fall, and there still is there still are a few spaces available for students in the professional communication program. So if you're wanting to jump in and start September 2022, you're definitely going to want to get your application in as soon as you can. So the application deadline is June 26, 2022. That being said, if there's any concerns, I see Chase leaning forward and is probably going to unmute there and say something.
I think that deadline's been pushed back. It'd probably be official soon, but I think it's going to go back at least into July, if not even a little bit further. So
okay, awesome, thank you. So yeah, get that application started, but there's a bit of wiggle room if you're interested in starting in September's intake. And then if you're wanting to take a bit of time before you jump back into school, we do have an intake as well in the spring. So that's in March 2023, and the application deadline for that is February. That being said, if you're interested in that intake, you can apply now. You don't have to wait until the application deadline to apply. And we understand school is an investment. It's a worthy investment, but it is an investment. So we do have our financial aid office to support you through this with different resources around loans, awards, scholarship, and other funding opportunities. So while you're applying and thinking about going back to school, I recommend checking out the financial aid and awards website. You can set up an appointment with a specialist to talk about your situation and what you're hoping to do. So absolutely start that now while you're starting your application. And as I mentioned, we are here to support you, and you know that already. You've interacted with us before, you've done a grad cert with us, so you know that you can reach out to us with any of your questions, or if you need more details about anything, don't hesitate to reach out to our enrollment team. If you're coming from within Canada, learn.more at royalroads.ca is for Canadian students, or internationally, learn.more.international at royalroads.ca, and the enrollment team connect you with Chase or Neha if there's any questions that they can address and help you with. So we are here to help you. And now I want to offer up the opportunity. I see there's been some questions in the chat and some clarification. Oh, I see here that reference letters are valid for 6 months. And regarding if Royal Roads already has your transcripts, I'm just reading questions out. Provided that you have not taken any other post-secondary education since your last application, we would have any transcripts needed for this application. So that's great news. All right, and just seeing here, if you want to talk one-on-one with our enrollment team, you can absolutely book an appointment for a virtual meeting with them. Awesome. I wanted to ask Chase about the cohort for MAPC. What's the class size like? Is it the same as like what you're doing with the grad cert, or what's it like?
Yeah, I would say that it's typical for us to have about 25 to 35 students. That would be a typical cohort for us. Sometimes the grad cert courses get a little bit bigger than that. There might be like strategic communication might get up above that number, but most of the, like for the actual cohort classes are about 25 to 35. And I think that's a nice number because it's not too small where all the pressure is on you to contribute every single time that there's something to contribute, but it's so, and it's big enough that you also get some, but it's small enough that you also know everyone. So there's a little bit of room to hide if you haven't done all the reading, but there's enough of it's small enough that you get to have that attention, and then everyone knows your name, and you have a good connection with people. I think the cohort is really, from what I hear from students, is that the cohort is really like kind of a magical part of the actual degree. It's a really important and memorable and like formative part of the degree. So it is it's really good that the way that it's structured allows the grad cert graduate to come in to the beginning of the program so that you get that experience of being with the cohort.
Yeah, and I can say, like, I did the grad cert in professional communication management, which is fun that I'm also hosting the webinar. I work at Royal Roads, and I felt like I jumped in the intensive 2 and with the MAPC cohort, and I felt like I fit right in. Like right away, you're feeling welcome, you're connecting and getting to know people, and definitely, I know that's always a question we have. What's the cohort like? Like, what does it feel like? What's the network like? So wanted to add that. And we have another question here. So how many courses do you take at once or per semester? And is it manageable with full-time work?
Yeah, so it is completely designed to be manageable for someone who's working full-time. And I would say the vast majority of people who are in the program are working full-time, which is also really like a cool component of it, because you depending on the project that you're working on, and there's a lot of teamwork, you have people who have done this and who know what they're doing, other people who have done this and they know what they're doing. So you have people from creative industries in your cohort. You'll have people who are from all kinds of different sectors in your cohort. You might have people who are quite senior in their organizations. You might have people who have just come straight from undergrad. So but the folks who might be very senior, they might not know anything about TikTok, and the folks who have just finished their undergrad, right? So they have this, it's a really nice space that you get to interact with. And so when you're in the intensive, you do 3 courses, just like you would for the grad cert. So the first intensive is the same kind of feeling as you've already felt, which is that you're doing 3 courses. You have the 2-week intensive where you have classes sort of scheduled at the same time. If you're face-to-face, right, you're in a classroom. If you're online, then it's online. And then after that, it's 1 course at a time. So after you finish that in intensive 1, you would go distance 1, and in there you would do 540. And when you finish 540, it's 10 weeks. Then you do 640, and then it's 10 weeks. Then you do distance 2, which is 630, and it's 10 weeks, right? So you keep doing these sort of 10-week sprints as you go through. And that's by design. So the idea is that you're taking a couple of weeks at a reduced work capacity when you're in the intensive, right? And therefore you're getting those 6 courses. You've already done 3, but you're getting those 6 courses out of the way, which expedites the time that it takes to finish the degree, so that you can finish it in 2 years, right? Because if we were to go 1 course at a time for the whole, it would extend it by another whole year. So it's designed to be able to be manageable with somebody working full time, given that you will have to do another intensive as you've already done, right? But after that, it's 1 course per term, and there's no like semester as such. we just run we start and we run the full year, and that's just the way that Royal Roads does it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So Chase, is there anything else or any advice that you'd like to share about people considering going back to school and doing their master's in professional communication?
I mean, I think it's sort of one of these decisions that is never the right time and is always the right time. So, you know, is it the right time to get married? I don't know, maybe we should wait. Is it the right time to have kids? Is it the right time to buy a house? Is it the right time to, you know, take that holiday? It's sort of always the right time, and it's never the right time for these big decisions. So I would say that if you're waiting for that magical moment to arrive on the horizon where it just is the right time to go back to school, I don't think that will happen. I just, has been my experience with students that you have to be ready just to go for it. And we understand that. I think we understand that a lot better than other institutions. I think Royal Roads as a university really understands that people are doing other things in their lives, and working and raising children and so on, and or just having a pet, or you know, or wanting to have a life. So I think that's the big thing that I would say, is that if you value it, if it's something that's on your, you want to have it and you need it, it's worth the investment, and you will never, in my opinion, regret taking that degree. It's something that that no one can take away from you. That's the one thing that's nice about education, is that you have it. You know, it is yours. It's in you. It's an organic thing, but it's also something that is recognized externally. And there's very few things that are like that. You can lose your job, or you can transfer your job, you know, but with the degree and with the knowledge that you have from that degree, it's yours wherever you go. And that's a really important and powerful thing about education.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank you for attending today's webinar and sharing information about this. Here I am calculating, like, ooh, grad cert in September. There's a few spaces left.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see you all there. We'll be part of the same cohort.
You should do it for sure. And if you want to reach out to me and set up a time to talk more specifically, I'll put my email in the chat. It's also online. You can find it, of course. But yeah, send me a note. I've talked to people, you know, if you have an idea of what you wanted to do for a research project or a thesis, I can point you in the direction of other professors who may have that expertise, or, you know, if you just want to kind of talk about what it's like, I'm happy to have those conversations. And thanks, Emara, for putting this together, and thanks for everyone for coming.